The air in the grand ballroom was thick with the scent of roses and champagne, the murmur of 300 guests blending with the swell of a string quartet. Crystal chandeliers dripped light over everything, turning the room into something out of a fairy tale. My sister Emily floated past in her custom Vera Wang gown, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. $300,000. That's what my father had spent without blinking. 6 months earlier, I had sat at their polished mahogany dining table, my fingers gripping the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. My 4-year-old daughter, Lily, was upstairs in their guest room, her small body curled under a blanket, her breathing shallow. The doctors had been clear. Without the surgery, she wouldn't make it to her 5th birthday. $150,000. Half of what they'd spent on Emily's wedding. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice trembling. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death, you know that." My mother sighed, stirring her Earl Grey with a delicate silver spoon. The sound of it clinking against the china made my teeth ache. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice smooth as always, "we just don't have that kind of money lying around." I stared at her. The diamond bracelet on her wrist, a just-because gift from Dad last Christmas, could have covered a week in the pediatric ICU. "But Emily's wedding—" "That was different," my father cut in, his tone leaving no room for argument. He folded his hands on the table, the gold of his Rolex glinting under the chandelier. "A wedding is an investment in the family's future. It's about legacy." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "And Lily's life isn't?" My mother's lips pursed. "Medical bills are unpredictable, darling. What if we pay for this and then there are complications, more surgeries? Where does it end?" I couldn't breathe. The walls of their pristine $1 million home felt like they were closing in. "She's your granddaughter," I whispered. My father's expression didn't change. "We've given you our answer." The drive home was a blur. Rain streaked the windshield, and I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands shook. When I walked through the door, Daniel took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. The drive home was a blur. Rain streaked the windshield, and I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands shook. When I walked through the door, Daniel took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. "They said no," I choked out against his shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His arms tightened around me, his breath warm against my hair. Upstairs, Lily was asleep, her favorite stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. I sank to my knees beside her bed, pressing my forehead to the mattress. "I won't let you die." The words were a vow, carved into my bones. And somewhere deep inside me, beneath the grief and the disbelief, something else stirred. Something cold, something patient.
Daniel caught me as my knees gave out. The weight of my parents' betrayal crushed me, and I collapsed against him, my sobs raw and ugly against his chest. His hands cradled the back of my head, his voice a low, steady murmur in my ear. "Breathe, baby. Just breathe." His parents, Martha and Richard, sat at our worn kitchen table, their faces etched with quiet fury. The air smelled of chamomile tea. Martha had made it the second I walked in, the way she always did when something was wrong. I forced the words out between shuddering breaths. "They said no." Richard's fist hit the table, rattling the mugs. "That's bullshit." Martha didn't scold him for his language. She just reached across the table and gripped my hand. Her fingers were rough from years of gardening, warm and solid. "We'll figure this out." The next morning, Martha pressed a check into my palm before I could even pour my coffee. "It's not the full amount," she said softly, "but we'll get the rest." I stared at the numbers. "Martha, this is your retirement. And Lily is our granddaughter," she said, like that settled it. A week later, they sold their house. The one they'd raised Daniel in. The one with the crooked porch step Richard always swore he'd fix. The one with Martha's rose bushes blooming wild along the fence. Richard sold his '69 Mustang, the car he'd spent every weekend for 10 years restoring. The day the buyer drove it away, I found him in the garage staring at the empty space where it had been. "Dad," my voice broke. He waved me off, clearing his throat. "It's just metal, kiddo. Lily's what matters." When the hospital bills were paid, I crumpled onto their tiny apartment couch, their new apartment with its thin walls and stained carpets, and cried for days. Martha held me, stroking my hair like I was a child. "We'll pay you back," I swore, my face buried in her shoulder. "Every penny." She pulled back, cupping my face in her hands. Her eyes were fierce. "Listen to me. Family doesn't keep score." And for the first time in months, I believed it. Because while my parents had given me empty words and a hollow love, Daniel's family had given everything. And that changed everything. Lily's laughter filled our tiny apartment like sunlight. Bright, warm, alive. She danced around the living room, twirling in her princess dress, the scar from her surgery barely visible now. I watched her with a heart so full it ached. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Family dinner Sunday. Mom's making her famous roast. Don't be late." Attached was a selfie of her lounging by their infinity pool, her new Louis Vuitton bag dangling carelessly from one manicured hand. Daniel's hand settled on my shoulder. "You don't have to go." I stared at the screen until the image blurred. "Yes," I whispered. "I do." The moment we walked into my parents' marble foyer, Emily squealed, "There's my favorite niece!" She scooped Lily into her arms, kissing her cheeks. "Auntie missed you." I clenched my jaw so hard it throbbed. Mom floated over in her Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress, air kissing my cheek. "Darling, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough?" Before I could answer, Dad clapped Daniel on the back. "Richard, good to see you." Daniel stiffened. "It's Daniel, sir." Dad chuckled. Right. They never once asked about Lily's recovery, never mentioned the surgery, never acknowledged the mountain of medical bills they'd left us to climb alone. Over dinner, Emily gushed about her Bali honeymoon. The private villa was to die for, and the spa treatments, "Oh my God, you have to try gold facials, Claire, they're life-changing." Mom sighed dreamily. "Remember when we took you girls to Paris for your 16th birthday, Claire? The Chanel boutique?" The roast turned to ash in my mouth. That trip had cost $20,000. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, can I have more potatoes?" As I reached for the serving dish, Dad chuckled. "Better watch that appetite, princess. You'll end up like your Aunt Emily. We had to pay for 2 dress sizes at her wedding." Emily fake pouted. "Daddy!" Everyone laughed. I looked at Daniel. His knuckles were white around his fork. Later, as Mom showed off her new diamond tennis bracelet, Lily climbed into my lap. "Grandma's bracelet is pretty," she whispered. I kissed her hair, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Not as pretty as you, baby." Emily snapped another selfie, her Cartier love bracelet glinting. "Claire, smile." The flash blinded me. In that moment, I realized the truth. They weren't just ignoring what they'd done. They'd already forgotten. And that was worse than the betrayal itself. 3 years later. The call came at 3:17 a.m. I watched my phone light up the darkened bedroom, my father's name flashing like a warning. Daniel stirred beside me as I let it ring out. "Who was that?" he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the hairline crack in the plaster I'd memorized over countless sleepless nights. The beginning of the end. 2 days later, my office. The scent of my father's cologne, that same expensive vetiver he'd worn my whole life, hit me before he even entered. When the door opened, the man who walked in was a ghost of the corporate titan I'd known. His Armani suit hung loose on his frame. Deep grooves carved his forehead where there had only been laugh lines before. "Claire." His voice cracked. I didn't stand, didn't offer coffee, just gestured to the chair across from my sleek glass desk. "Dad." He collapsed into the seat like his bones had given out. I don't know where else to turn. I steepled my fingers, the diamond band on my left hand catching the light. Daniel's grandmother's ring, the only heirloom his parents had left after selling everything. "The market's been brutal," he began, hands trembling. "The Kensington deal collapsed. The board is—" I cut him off. "How much?" His Adam's apple bobbed. $5 million, just to cover payroll until... I let the silence stretch until it became a living thing between us. Outside, rain began pattering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, the one with the view that dwarfed his own. When I finally spoke, my voice was syrup-sweet. "Of course, Dad. Family helps family." His shoulders sagged with relief. "Oh, Claire, I knew you'd—" At 22% interest. The color drained from his face. That's predatory." I tilted my head the way Lily did when her goldfish died and she asked why it wouldn't wake up. "You taught me business is business, didn't you?" His jaw worked. "We're blood. And Lily was your blood, too." I stood, smoothing my tailored blazer. "My terms are non-negotiable, but if you'd rather take your chances with the vultures circling your company—" I didn't need to finish. The way his breath hitched told me everything. As he reached for the pen, I caught his wrist. His skin felt paper thin. One more condition. Emily steps down from the board. Claire, she's your sister. And you made her CFO after she failed upwards through 3 divorces and 2 bankruptcies. I released him. Those are my terms. The pen scratched across paper like a death rattle. When the door closed behind him, I pressed the intercom. Miranda, get me Samuel on line 1. Daniel's uncle answered on the first ring. It's done? I watched rain streak down the glass like tears. Burn it all down. The storm mirrored the night they'd refused to save Lily. Rain slashing sideways, thunder shaking the windows. When the doorbell rang at midnight, I already knew who'd be standing there. I took my time walking to the door, letting them wait, letting them shiver. I took my time walking to the door, letting them wait, letting them shiver. Through the peephole, they looked like strangers. My father's once impeccable suit was rumpled, his hair plastered to his forehead. My mother clutched a soaked coat around her shoulders, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. I opened the door just enough to watch the rain pelt them. Claire, my father's voice broke. Please, the word I'd once begged them with. Emily pushed forward, her designer heels sinking into the mud. This has gone far enough. Daddy's company is mine now. I smiled, cold as the steel in my voice. Just like his house, his cars, his precious reputation. My mother reached out a shaking hand. We're family. The laugh tore from my throat like broken glass. Funny, that's exactly what I said when Lily was dying.
Lightning flashed, illuminating the tears on my father's face. We made a mistake. A mistake! I stepped forward, letting the rain soak through my silk robe. You let my child suffer while you bought Emily her 3rd honeymoon?
Emily's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. You're being dramatic. I slammed the door open so hard it shook the walls. Dramatic? Let me show you dramatic.
From the shadows, Daniel emerged with a stack of papers. I took them, flinging the pages into the storm. They scattered like wounded birds. Foreclosure notices, lawsuits, bank statements. I pointed to a photo caught in the hedges, Lily in her hospital bed. That's what dramatic looks like. My father fell to his knees in the mud. What do you want from us?
I crouched down until we were eye level, rainwater streaming down my face. I want you to stand outside a hospital window, watching your grandchild fight for breath. I want you to beg a doctor for help and hear sorry. I stood, wiping my hands on my robe like I could cleanse myself of them. But since I can't give you that, this will do. 1 year later. The movers carried the last box into Martha and Richard's new home, a sprawling estate with a garden Martha had wept over. Lily chased butterflies through the hydrangeas, her laughter floating on the spring air. Daniel wrapped his arms around me from behind, his lips warm against my temple. Happy? I watched as Richard taught Lily how to plant roses in soil that would never reject her. Beyond the gates, in a cramped apartment across town, my parents lived on the allowance I provided, enough for groceries, but not for pride. Emily worked as a receptionist at a clinic, the irony not lost on me. I turned in Daniel's embrace, finally free of the weight I'd carried for years. Not happy, I whispered against his lips. At peace. Because some scales can never be balanced, only tipped the other way. And ours had finally crashed down where they belonged.